Yeah, we have talked about the silver tsunami that is coming as far as baby boomers and maybe some of the older Gen X people are about to face homelessness and they are being impacted by the economy. We've talked about the nursing shortage and the nursing home crisis. And now we need to speak about it from the impact or the impact that it is about to have on millennials right now, the people that are currently in the sandwich generation, the people that have kids of their own, but also have elderly parents, because things are about to hit the fan and nobody has any money to clean this mess up, basically, is where things are going. So this article is from Fortune. Millennials could see their parents become their biggest expense, and American families are woefully unprepared. I don't know how parents can become people's biggest expense when there is a housing crisis and a childcare crisis and folks can't afford anything. So I don't know who's going to be paying for stuff, but I guess let's see what Fortune has to say. Most millennials and Gen Xers have little idea what's going to happen when their parents hit retirement age. That's about to become an increasingly real problem, particularly for those with parents in the middle income stratum. Off the bat, I need to understand why millennials and Gen Xers have to be responsible for their parents hitting retirement age when we are barely living, like we're barely surviving. So, yeah, right off the bat, I don't know. Okay, so a retirement affordability crisis is escalating in the US. 3 out of 4 middle income older Americans won't have enough to pay for assisted living services without selling their homes within a decade, according to data analyzed by NORC at the University of Chicago, supported by a grant from the SCAN Foundation. Baby boomers, a massive generation, are moving into older adulthood. NO, NORC, I'll just start calling them NORC. NORC found that there will be 16 million middle income older adults by 2033. As NORC's research summary explains, many will struggle to pay for the health, personal care, and housing services they need. Even with home equity, nearly 40% will not be able to afford assisted living. These expenses have become more onerous for older Americans over time. In 2002, adults over 65 spent 48,000 adjusted for inflation a year on average, according to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Today, the average is 58,000, more than 20% increase. The average rent and medical costs for those in assisted living currently stands at $65,000 a year. As noted in a Harvard University report, in 2021, older households with annual incomes between $15,000 and $30,000 had a median of $1,000 per month available to cover other expenses after paying for housing. Those earning less had incomes that, on average, were insufficient to meet their housing costs, to say nothing of other basic needs. Racial disparities are only compounding this situation, with people of color experiencing more financial hardship as they age. Most people want to see their parents stay in their own homes. The same goes for their parents. 89% of Americans over 55 want to age in place. Meanwhile, more than half of all Americans feel they're not on pace to retire comfortably. With younger generations unsure about funding their eventual retirement, they are woefully unprepared to also support their parents. Exactly. So it boggles my mind that Gen X, younger Gen X and millennials will even have to be thinking about their parents' retirement when we know good and well we don't have enough money to, like, how are we supposed to worry about our parents when we have to worry about ourselves as well as supposedly care for our own kids right now? This is unsustainable, and I don't know why they think that the younger generation, like the sandwich generation, are supposed to do anything about it. Something has to give. If you're in the sandwich generation, Gen X and older millennials, and want to share in the responsibility for their parents' retirement, you should begin by thinking of your parents' retirement plans in the context of your own. What? Most financial advice suggests people calculate what they'll need in retirement and then plan their savings around that number. That's good counsel, but it's likely they're only applying it to themselves and their dependents. Instead, caregivers should recalculate that number and discuss it with their parents. Tragically, many middle income older adults might actually benefit from spending down their savings so they qualify for Medicaid, which would enable them to receive government support for assisted living and healthcare. In addition to understanding that Medicare will not pay for everything, caregivers should have a strong grasp on what their costs will be. To avoid being caught off guard by towering monthly expenses, caregivers can de-risk by establishing a rainy day fund for their parents' retirement. Such a fund can be structured differently depending on one's risk tolerance. Some might choose to only set aside money for their parents' living costs, while others might want to have emergency funds available for more serious situations. Y'all, this article is blowing my mind. Figuring this all out means having hard conversations with parents. It's critical that everyone's on the same page as soon as possible. For many parents, it's embarrassing to consider receiving help from their children. Others may feel guilty about burdening them, but families that prefer to brush these discussions under the rug could be in for unexpected and catastrophic surprises when a loved one falls ill or becomes unable to take care of themselves. When this happens, the last thing anyone wants to think about is money. If it helps, they can be framed more as joint financial planning sessions that makes everyone feel they're playing a vital role. I've had such conversations with my parents, and they always went best when I approached them with an inquisitive and open attitude. These conversations weren't easy, but they went a long way towards reassuring me about our joint financial health going forward. All right, supporting policy changes. Solving this problem on a macro level means working to support policies that aid caregivers. In particular, the bipartisan Credit for Caring Act, introduced in 2021, would mark a significant step in alleviating the burden on caregivers. The bill provides a tax credit of 30% for qualified caregiving expenses over $2,000, with a maximum credit of $5,000. And it has widespread support from organizations such as AARP, the Alzheimer's Association, United Way, and Walgreens. In addition, more states are enacting mandatory paid family leave laws for private employers. As of 2023, 8 states require caregiver leave, and 5 more states are set to implement these policies by 2026. Writing letters to political representatives, speaking up at town halls, and talking to the media about caregiving struggles can also help influence policymakers on caregiver support. Um, at what point are the boomers and the older Gen X supposed to swoop in and talk to government officials about this? I don't know, but they are asking a lot from a generation that is scraping by and barely has the housing situation under control for ourselves. This is a ridiculous amount of work that they're asking millennials and young Gen X people to take on. Some people are also pushing for caregiver leave policies at their workplaces, and states do without mandatory leave policies. Though employers offer these voluntarily, the more paid leave policies are enacted, the more the idea becomes normalized. Confronting the affordability crisis for older adults will require a combination of small steps like these and courageous changes um, among society's most influential institutions. With the dedicated, you know what, they need to dedicate to themselves, and the lawmakers of right now are part of this situation, this older generation. They should have been talking about this a long time ago, and they're doing too much to think that the people right now in this sandwich generation have to be responsible for them when there is an affordability crisis of our own, and you got teachers that can't even live in the same city that they teach in because of the affordability crisis. You got parents that can't afford a mortgage and childcare. It's like, y'all, this is just doing too much. Y'all go ahead and weigh in. I don't have any answers for this, but this is just doing too much. Like, comment, share.